Hey guys, this is Chris, and I'm back here with my wrap-up lesson for you on the major scale. I know this has been a couple months in the making, but it's very important that you understand everything to do with the major scale at the simplistic level. And the reason I went over it in such detail is because if I was to give you all 7 modes and say, hey, you know what, we're just going to slam through all 7 of these modes right now in a 45-minute lesson, it's way too much detail. You know, I mean, you have to remember your fingerings, your positions, where to move it around the neck, plus you've learned your alternate picking, and there's just way too much going on for it to be one big fat lesson. So I broke it out into separate individual lessons so that you could better focus from week to week on exactly what the little parts are of it, and now we're going to focus on the sum of those parts, which is the C major scale that we've been learning. So just to add a little dirt to this channel, you know, we'll start with that in a second, but when we're playing, you're now going to learn how to connect these modes together, because if you've been paying attention and focusing on your positions and how your hands are supposed to be for these 7 modes and learned them to a T, you'll know that these start to connect at some point, because when we're playing in our C Ionian, and then we went and played in our D Dorian, the last note right here of the first mode became the first note of the second mode. So this gives us a new starting point, so I could go, and all of a sudden I just slid up the strings and I'm playing something that's in the key of C using the 2 different modes here. So that's the important thing to know. So we go, and you can go backwards as well. See how that was all in the same key. And we were able to do kind of a little riff. So again, if you wanted to, you could add some distortion to this. Now I'm going to keep it fairly simple, you know. So that's really all we're doing there, is we're learning to connect the modes together now. So as you learned, these are the first 3 notes on the low E string, and that's your C Ionian, okay? And then from our second lesson, we connected the last note of the first mode, and that's actually the first note of the second mode. And that's what gives us room to move up the neck. Now you'll notice the last note right here, and the second to last note right here, if you were to remember your position, this moves us up into our 3rd and 4th position, our Phrygian and Lydian. So now we can go. So now we're able to connect those 3 modes together. And again, we're only doing this on 1 string to start, just to make it a little easier for you. So when we're doing this particular kind of, I don't know, I like to think of it as addition. You know, we're adding. You know, we're not really adding numbers here, we're adding notes. And the notes are all in the scale of C major, and we're using the different modes to add those notes together. So really, it's kind of like an addition formula. So again, since we're here, so that's what we're able to do with that now, is that now that I can kind of see the patterns together, I go, okay, if we started in the first mode of the C major scale and we're to build upon it, now I know what those 7 modes feel like, I know what they sound like, I know what they look like, and I can start to build something musically. I can start to structure something that is going to sound good to me, and it's going to fit into a song. So when you decide to write in the key of C, then you know how to do the C major scale, and you know the 7 modes of it. You know all the different modes, you know how they're supposed to look, you know how they're supposed to feel, and you know how they're supposed to sound. And you can put them together, and you can choose certain modes to use, certain modes not to use. And that's the beauty of it, because now you know everything that you can use in the C major scale. Now you can decide what you want to use and what you don't want to use. And that's what makes music so beautiful, is the fact that when you're doing something like this, if you were to use all of it, it sounds very structured and very particular and very ordinary. And that's not what you're looking for. You're looking to take the notes that move you and are giving you some kind of purpose or feeling with music that you're writing, and that's what you're supposed to accentuate on. And it's okay to use notes outside of that parameter that you set because it's music and it's expression. It's whatever you want it to be. So in saying that, the next part of this that you're going to want to learn is to go down the strings now while we're connected. So the best way to do that is to go down a string in this mode. Now, if we were to connect these together, or try to connect these together, this is our second mode right here. D Dorian, because D Dorian goes. So now if we went. And that right there is an octave for a C. So when we're looking at this now, we're able to go, okay, I'm playing in my C Ionian. Now if I slide up, that note right there is the second note, okay, on the A string that we would play in our D Dorian mode. And I know that if I was to come down here now to the next string, I can start playing in that mode again, okay? And I can finish out that mode. So if you wanted to switch modes and look for a way to slide, instead of going, okay, I'm just going to play. Now all you're doing is playing in that C Ionian mode, and that's all well and good, but that gets kind of boring. There's no dynamics to it, it's not changing. So one of the things you want to do is go, okay, if I'm ripping through this, how can I get somewhere else? You know, I don't want to just be playing here all the time. I want to move it up, I want to switch it up, I want to change it, I want to change the sound. So what you do is you can take that and move into another mode. So if you decide, okay, sounds good, you want to slide up, you go. So right there I was able to actually end in our 3rd/4th mode there, and that was the Phrygian and Lydian mode. So that's where you start to get into this and you go, okay, what can I do here? I want to move from here and I want to end up here somewhere because these notes are all well and good and they sound good, but I need to get into some higher registers. You know, my song calls for something higher up. You know, so if I'm playing in this really gainy sound like that, okay, and you're thinking, all I'm going to do is sit there in the one mode. The one mode's going to sound good, but it's going to get boring. So if you're like, it starts to get really boring. So the next thing you start thinking of is, how can I get out of that? So that's why it's important to learn how you can connect these different shapes together, because these shapes show you the guidelines of the whole fretboard and what you can play in that key properly. So right here we're going to go back into that high gain channel and we're going to show you what that sounds like moving through 3 different modes. So as you notice, it's a pretty basic pattern. It's very simple. It's already used a couple of the things that we've been learning. It's used slides, trem picking, hammer-ons, pull-offs, and it used some bends there too at the end when I went. And you'll notice right away I resolved on the C. So using those 3 modes, all I did was end up resolving on the C. So I brought it right back around to the beginning. Even though I'm not in the C Ionian, I was able to resolve right to the beginning of that scale again. So that's the important thing. I want you to play around with the idea, you know, and get used to connecting these different modes together, because you got to remember, you've got 7 modes to work through now. You could start here on the G and work all the way up and be... So now all that does is that gives you an idea of where you can play. I've showed you that you can go Getting a little strung out on it apparently. But I've shown you that you can go all the way up and down the fretboard, and it's not that we're doing anything complex or crazy. I'm not even really shredding at all. You know, we're just playing the notes and we're just using the trem picking. Again, it's the trem picking that we've used. It's the 7 different modes that we've used, and I'm just showing you how to connect these together. And it's all off the cuff. That's the big thing, because the one thing people always ask me and a lot of other guitarists and always wonder about their favorite guitarists, because I used to wonder it for years and years, and even to this day I still wonder, and it's because they've taken concepts that they've learned over the years and from other musicians that they've learned from over the years, and they've developed something that no one else has seen, and that's why it's so interesting to you and I. That's what makes it so fascinating, and that's what kind of gives us the drive, like, I want to do that. I want to make something really cool and make it sound nice, and I want it to be my sound, you know, and that's why this kind of thing is so important, because we're teaching you the techniques, we're teaching you the modes, we're teaching you your scales, and we're teaching you all these different things and how you can compile them together, because anyone can play any one of those particular things separate. It's how you combine it and make your unique sound and your unique music that really makes people stand out. So all these are the tools to create. These are the tools to create. You can't teach creativity, you just got to let that happen. You know, this is like anything else. If you go home and you read your book and you study all the bold words that are going to be at the end of the book, and then you learn the definitions from them, and you go take a test, you'll pass that test because you'll have learned everything that's in the book. You were just a machine and you learned it. And that's part of being a guitarist, is the studying, the learning, and becoming a machine, because you need to understand these concepts inside and out. You need to understand them so hard that it becomes second nature. But the thing that you don't want to compromise, that most people, including myself, and you will definitely run into it, is that you get rid of some experimental and creative freedom when you learn these kinds of things. So you need to know when to stop, and you need to know when it's okay to just play wrong notes, and it's okay to just play something that sounds completely wild and out of key and definitely doesn't sound like, you know, the harmonies fit together right. Experiment, because all these are tools. No one says that you have to pick up a hammer and hammer a nail with it. If you need to knock down a wall and you have a hammer on you, you keep smashing into the wall and you take down the whole wall with a hammer. It's a tool intended for a different purpose, but it got your job done that you needed it to do. And that's exactly what I'm trying to teach you here, is that you have your whole scale, you know, your major scale, you have these 7 different modes, you have all these other techniques I've shown you so far, but please don't forget that this is a creative freedom and a creative expression. The tools are only there for you to use. They don't have to be used the way that I am teaching you them. It's simply that you need to understand that these are some of the tools. There are more I haven't shown you yet, and there will be plenty that I'm sure I won't have shown you by the end of all these videos, because there is so much to show. So if you take anything away from this ending video on the major scale, please let it be that these parts that we've broken down, the sum of these parts is going to be greater than they are separate. So you need to learn to connect these together, and you need to learn to play these in a particular pattern that sounds good to you. You don't need to play all 7 notes in every single of the 7 scales or modes. You know, pick what sounds good to you. Develop a sound, develop a song, and then make that yours using these tools. Again, you don't have to use them all, and you don't have to use them the way that I taught you. It's merely to be in your bag of tricks so that you have it, and it's not that you need to use it. So if you have any questions, go ahead and let me know. I know I've thrown a lot at you, but I at least hope that I've given you a good lesson and something to really think about when you're doing this. So go ahead and let me know if you have any questions. Like I said, get a hold of me through any of the mediums. If you haven't yet, subscribe to me on Facebook, subscribe to me on YouTube, and you know, let me know what you're thinking, and keep watching out for the videos. Take care. Thanks for watching.